15 lessons, 2 hours each. Can you learn to illustrate fashion in just 30 hours? Maybe you can be the judge of that. Hey guys, it's Emma. Welcome back to the Sewing Diaries, a series where I take you along with me as I learn how to make my own clothes. And besides learning how to sew, we also got to learn how to communicate our ideas onto paper through the art form of fashion illustration. As any good drawing class goes, it always starts off with learning how to draw lines. Straight lines, curved lines, a longer curved line, which makes a circle, and then when you put that all together, you now have all the tools you need to observe and draw shadow. How to take into account where the light source is, where the darkest of shadows are, where the lighter shadows are. And you'd think we'd continue to hone this skill for a little while longer, but our instructors had other plans in mind because the very next lesson, she threw us into the deep end with Intro to Human Anatomy, starting off with the head. We learned to draw our front-facing profile, a side profile at 10 centimeters long, and this gave us enough space to really get to know the different ratios of the bone structure of the face between the cranium and the jaw and the ears and things like that. And for homework, we started to draw smaller and smaller heads, down to a 5 centimeter tall head to a 3 centimeter, and then last but not least, I believe we drew like a 2 centimeter head. And this is so that when we drew our croquis later on, and croquis is kind of like a silhouette of a body onto which you start to draw clothes. Well, hopefully at this point you've gotten used to the proportions. You can just freehand the head without having to draw all of these tiny lines. This next lesson was the fun one. We got to learn how to draw the eyes, the nose, the mouth, and put it all together and really start to see the character come to life. Even though our instructor gave us the same set of instructions, everyone's face that they drew kind of turned out slightly different with slightly different gazes through the eyes, like very different characters. This is just my instructor correcting my work, by the way. She added a couple extra details here and there that really made everything pop a little bit more. I think what I was afraid to do at this point was to press too hard with my pencil. As the course went on, we got more confident to press harder, to use a heavier weight of the line. I personally really liked the face that I drew. Like if I ever had to draw what my spirit warrior looked like, I'd imagine her to look something like this. During the next couple sessions, we continued with human anatomy, this time with the rest of the body. We first drew a straight standing body before going into walking positions. And if you're wondering why these models, these drawings are so incredibly long, yeah. In real life, an average human is about 7.5 to 8 heads long. But when you're drawing croquis, they draw the models to be about 9 heads long. So 8 heads if you're standing flat on your feet, and then you add heels to the model, and now they have 9 heads. And supposedly this is the ideal ratio to drawing croquis that you draw clothes onto. After learning the front-facing anatomy, we started putting our croquis into movement. Like if you had the majority of your body weight distributed onto your front leg, which way would your hips swing and how would that affect all the other placement of your limbs, your neck, your shoulders, your arms? Now that we had basic anatomy down, we started learning how to draw clothes. Starting off with the upper body, we learned how to draw different sleeve variations and collar variations, blouse variations, and when you put the 3 together, you have a whole range of tops. After that, we learned to draw skirt variations as well, and this is when you really start to get to play with textures, with heavier fabric, how to adjust the weight of your pencil to mimic different weights, different drapes of fabric, how to make it look as though a fabric is flowier, like chiffon or organza, or heavier material like velvet or cotton. Oh, and if you see any drawings with a signature at the bottom, that's my instructor's. Overall, I'd say we were pretty diligent as a class, and what motivated us even more was that our instructor promised us that if we went fast enough, we'd even have some time to learn how to play with watercolors to color in our fashion illustrations. Today we're not working with anything fashion related, just learning how to navigate watercolor, basic techniques like wet on wet or wet on dry. To be honest, between all the types of paints available out there, watercolor is by far my favorite because I feel like it's almost a living medium in the sense that I'll play with the colors, I do part of the work, but the water does the rest of the work. It kind of bleeds the colors out themselves, creates textures and gradients and stuff like that, and I don't have to control that, and I let the water do its thing. So it feels almost like a teamwork effort between me and the water, as opposed to if I were coloring in with pencil, perhaps, I'd have to be the boss of every single stroke of color and depth and hue and value of color that I place onto that piece of paper. But with watercolor, I do feel a little bit more free, if you get what I mean. And then we learned how to mix the color of human flesh to color in our croquis. This is my instructor's, this one's mine, and I still need to work on the shading. Again, it's this hesitation to work with darker values, because I feel like we all know that if you start lighter, you can build up the color to make it darker, but once you go darker, you can't go back. And here's lesson 15. Our final lesson. We learned to draw some more complicated textures such as fur and leather and ruffles. So what do you think? Did we succeed in learning how to draw fashion in 30 hours? Personally, I feel like this was very much a crash course into fashion illustration. It's a good introduction that gives you a solid basis off of which, if you're curious enough, you have the tools to go and look for further information by yourself, whether that be standalone tutorials on YouTube or maybe even further, more in-depth courses online or in person. My instructor is an advocate for learning how to fashion illustrate on paper first, so that you really get the feel of line weight that you're putting onto the paper and feel how the lines move when you draw before you actually move on to digital fashion illustration, which has become a very common medium these days in the fashion industry. I also think like if you start off with learning how to draw on paper, you can transition onto a tablet without too much friction, I suppose, but it will be less intuitive the other way around. Once you've gotten accustomed to drawing on a tablet and undoing a mistake by just double tapping the screen or zooming in onto details and stuff like that, it becomes a little bit harder to transition back onto paper where you lose all of these widgets and technological conveniences. I do think the most successful thing about this course was that it took away our fear of the concept of fashion illustration, because it does feel like such a vast world in there and so complicated with all of these textures and fabrics and colors and model poses and stuff. You kind of get overwhelmed when you look into this world for the very first time. But oftentimes fear is what holds you back. But through this program, this 1 month program, we all learned that we are capable of doing this if we so choose. And I would count that as a success. If anything, I have so much respect for my instructor for, first of all, having confidence in us, beginner drawers. Some of us have never drawn before, as well as having confidence in herself that she has techniques strong enough and delivery skills good enough to explain everything to us. To be honest, after the program, I realized that perhaps fashion illustration isn't for me. Can I do it? Yes. Do I enjoy it? Not as much as I enjoy drawing plants and trees and greenery and things like that, but to have abolished the fear of fashion illustration, I'd say this course was a success. How about you guys? Have you tried fashion illustration before, and what do you think about it? Which part of the process is most rewarding for you and which part is the most challenging? Be sure to let me know in the comments below. Anyways, that's all for this video. Thank you guys so much for watching. Have a wonderful week, and I'll see you in the next video. Bye!